Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night, Almeida versus Lewis. Now, let's just start off with the fact that this episode is 2 days late, but that's fine. Let's go into the most important thing of this fight card. And the most important thing I want to talk about is the main event. Jailton Almeida versus Derrick Lewis. Now, if any of you know, and you can look into the archives, you know for a fact that I've been on this since day one, since Jailton Almeida came across the UFC platform, since he was put into my lexicon, since he was put into my head, that this man is not who we say he is. And I'm going to be just purely blunt with this. If you can look into the archives, I've said this before, Jailton Almeida is a terrible fighter. Now, I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, oh, but the finishes and the... I've been on this from the beginning. Now, it doesn't matter because I'm just talking to myself in my room, so no one cares. There's no one in my vicinity of where I live where we can in-depth talk about MMA and argue and scream at each other. So I'm just a lunatic in my room just talking about it by myself. But this fight showed exactly what it proved everything. And it proved everything because now everyone's talking about it. And here's what I'm referring to. Jailton Almeida faces off with Derrick Lewis. And in the previous fights that Jailton Almeida has faced, they all ended in finishes. And yet there was one little wrinkle I noticed, and this is something I've been on that I've noticed. There's one little wrinkle, and that is his lack of ground and pound will come back to bite him. Now, it hasn't come back to bite him in the sense of like a victory, but just the perception of how he's been looked at. I think a while ago I was on Twitter and I posted that. I basically was like, Jailton Almeida sucks. He's a terrible fighter and he's boring. And somebody said, well, look at all his finishes. What are you talking about? You're an idiot. And at first I paused. I was like, maybe I am stupid. Look at all his finishes. But then I said, no, there is going to be a fighter that stumps all of this, that everything you're saying is irrelevant. And then they put him up against Curtis Blades. And for the people who watch fights, understood that Curtis Blades is a takedown machine. If he were to somehow get taken down by Jailton Almeida, this is an interesting fight. But we know that he has great takedown defense, and that he'll be the one probably taking down Jailton Almeida, who also, in tandem, has no cardio. So I'm sitting there going, this is the fight that exposes Jailton Almeida. An injury happens to Curtis Blades. And we're stuck with a replacement with Derrick Lewis. Now, I understand there were memes online of, oh, Lewis is going to get up, but we knew how this was going to end. We knew that it's either a 5-round loss for Lewis, or Lewis somehow KOs him out of nowhere, or Jailton Almeida beats him in round 1 or round 2. And it turns out that it was the second option, where Lewis loses in the 5th round. But what makes this whole fight infuriating is that I personally, having to endure it for all the round 1 wins that Almeida has had, I had to watch 5 rounds of not only Almeida not being active on top, so inactive on top of him that Mark Goddard, who I kind of don't like as a ref for whatever reason, was doing something that I say out loud in my head when I'm watching the fight, which is, can Jailton Almeida fucking strike? To the point where he's screaming at Jailton Almeida saying, hey, listen, you need to stop looking at me and you need to throw strikes. You need to be more active. Now, I understand why they don't say that. They always say things like, you guys need to be more active. You guys need to work right, because you don't want to sound like you're particularly talking to a specific fighter to finish the fight or to be active, right? To lean a certain way on a fighter. But you could just see it. I mean, there's only one person you're talking to when you say, we need to be more active. Because traditionally, we're not telling the fighter on bottom to be active. His job is really to get up. Obviously, some fighters are active on bottom and win rounds that way, but that's not what we're talking about here. The onus is on the fighter on top to be active and to finish the fight. But what do we do? Goddard is screaming at Almeida, telling him to hurry up, to finish the fight. There's a part of me that wishes he actually stood him up for an instance, but he didn't, because Jailton Almeida, when he heard that noise, did very little and did enough to keep that fight on the ground. But we could rag on Almeida all day. I could rag on Almeida all day. Let's go to the next person I want to rag on, which is Dominick Cruz. Dominick Cruz, who I like, whose commentary I like and I find insightful, became Jailton Almeida's girlfriend on commentary. Michael Bisping, who I hate and dislike his commentary, said the right thing. And he occasionally does this at times where he goes, hey, I'd like the fighter on bottom to be active. Well, guess what? He did it again, where he was like, hey, this is great, and he's winning, and he's dominant, right? They always do the thing where they're like, oh, let me praise the fighter first, that way it doesn't come off as criticism. But it's legit criticism, where he says, Jailton Almeida's winning, he's great, he's wonderful, he's beautiful, he cleaned my car. But he needs to be, he's in mount. I had this issue with him back when he fought whoever I can't remember, I don't have the thing up right now, when he fought some other guys, where he was where he's just on top. He has dominant, Derek Lewis was, and obviously, I said this at about round 3, so this is obviously an incorrect statement that I'm about to say, but at the time that I said it, I think it was pretty close to true. Derek Lewis landed more strikes than not only Jailton Almeida's past UFC opponents, but Jailton Almeida's strikes against those opponents combined. I could be wrong on that, but I said that at about round 3, so somebody check me on that. Still, he was more active than Almeida and his opponents in the past in the UFC. That's how inactive Jailton Almeida was. So inactive that Lewis was doing well. But here's the problem. We go into the commentary where Bisping is saying, listen, he's winning, he painted my house. But he needs to be active. And there's a couple times Bisping has done that. And in my head, I was like, finally, somebody says it. Here comes Dominick Cruz going, yeah, but he's winning. We know he's fucking winning. Hey, but he's winning, but he's doing well. That just shows how great Derek Lewis' defense is. No, his defense was literally to burst up at a random moment in the lull. That's not defense. His defense was to lay there and wait, which is fine. And in the meantime, and you know what makes Dominick Cruz's statement so stupid? Was, oh my God, Derek Lewis is waiting to burst up. Is that we know he's waiting to burst up. How about the part where he's able to take him down with ease? How about the part where he then finally does administer some ground and pound and looks pretty good doing it? But then we figured out why he doesn't do it a lot, which is something I already figured out. He has no cardio. He has zero cardio. And if we had a fighter who somehow could get him in the position to make it into a Bonfim versus Dalby fight, then we have what we've all been looking for, which is Jailton Almeida has a hole in this game. But the problem is he's been given opponents that have no takedown defense. And that's the problem with this entire fight. And in the entire time watching it, there was talks of dominant. It's one-sided, yeah, but dominant is not the right answer when the person on top is allergic to ground and pound. A 10-8 shouldn't even sniff this scorecard. And I'm disgusted that I even heard a 10-8 being announced. But I was scared that there was going to be more 10-8s. There shouldn't have been, but there was. But whatever. He was so inactive. This is a 50-45. I wish I could give it a 49-46 or 49-45. That's how pissed I am at this. That's how inactive he was on top. I mean, and the fact that nobody was talking about this on the lead up, they were just talking about the finishes, and they were comparing him to these Dagestani fighters who a lot of people don't like, and at times can be very boring, are at least a lot more inactive. I was, check the archives. That's the new term. Check the archives. I was so mad at Mokaev for being inactive on the ground. And then finally he fights Tim Elliott, where he was finally very inactive and he looked amazing. These guys are finishers. Their whole style is meant to finish. Jailton Almeida, while it duped many people to look like it was made to finish. It wasn't. It showed multiple things, which is he's not a finisher. He has no cardio. He won't pick a weight class, which is why he was fighting at catchweight most of his fights. He was fighting at catchweight because he wouldn't commit to fighting at 205. He's too big for 205, and we know that now. And he has no cardio to fight at 205 because people, they would get him. And then also, listen, the proof is in the pudding. He literally told everyone the fastest way to get a title is heavyweight. No. I know most people go, oh, he's so good at grappling that's the best way to get to a title. No. He's telling you indirectly, I have some holes in my game. One, that he can't strike. He has a boxing background and he can't strike. It's the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. He has a boxing background and he can't strike. At all. Two, he wants to fight a heavyweight. He's able to possibly make 205 and compete at the level of 205ers. But just to put a bow on this, we go back to Dominic Cruz carrying water for him over and over up until we get to finally the fourth round where he finally concedes to the point which is, okay, Almeida actually needs to throw strikes down here. Instead, we have 1, 2, and 3 where he just goes, oh my God, nobody's winning. He's doing great. He's doing amazing. This is his bread and butter. No, this just shows how great Lewis is. I mean, if Lewis just made one burst, then Almeida's game plan is fucked. It makes absolutely no sense, and I'm just glad everyone got to see how one-dimensional isn't even the right word. Half-dimensional Jailton Almeida is. All right, and that's it. It was a 50-45. Two judges scored it. I won't even get to the judges or the scorecards, but two judges had it 50-44, which is nonsense, which is absolute nonsense. But that's whatever that is. And that's also an honorable mention. We're gonna get to the main portion, which is the injustice portion. Okay, there's only one injustice on this card, and that is something I just find so surprising. Fakhretdinov versus Dos Santos. Now, it's Fakhretdinov versus Dos Santos. Okay, I had this 29-28 for Fakhretdinov. You can guess it. First two rounds are 10-9. Last round is a 10-9 for Dos Santos. This ended in a majority draw. Guys, we just had to talk about 10-8s. This is one of those large 10-9s. This is, and in my head, I never like to accuse anyone of this, but this is home cooking. This is a Brazil scorecard, and it shouldn't have happened. Okay, let's start from the top, which is the first round happens. Fakhretdinov drops and outstrikes Dos Santos, right? All in the span of, I want to say, the first 30 seconds. He outstrikes him pretty heavily, and then for the last 2 minutes, they're kind of just trading shots back and forth. Okay, you go to round 2, where Fakhretdinov outstrikes Dos Santos, and he gets a takedown on him, right? He's up 2 rounds. You go to the third round, where Dos Santos drops and outstrikes Fakhretdinov. Now, he's outstriking him by, I want to say, about 7 to 8 strikes on the feet. Okay, up until the drop happens, close to the end of the third round. He's outstriking him by a decent amount. He then drops Fakhretdinov with a kick to the gut. Kick to the midsection, drops him, gets on top of him, a decent amount of ground and pound, and then Fakhretdinov gets up. This is a routine 10-9. For two judges to come out and just go, you know what, fuck it, it's a draw, is an insane thing, is so insane. Fakhretdinov was robbed. And you know what I hate is this new thing of optics. I'm not talking about when corners go, hey, optics to fool the not to fool, but to fool and or put more work into the judge's mind. We're not talking about that. I'm talking about Fakhretdinov at the just the constant hugging, the constant high-fiving. I'm cool with that normally, but especially in these fights where shit like this can happen, I feel like this shit actually affects the scorecards. Subliminally, I'm speaking. The constant high-fiving, the constant hugging. Fakhretdinov at the end of this round, not to say it would have mattered, they would have wrote this, they still would have wrote it the same way. 29-28, 28-28, 28-28. Fakhretdinov at the end of this, just high-fiving, hugging, and the way he took that decision. You know, normally we hate when fighters get mad when we know that, like, for example, Casey Kenny versus the Chinese fighter in the bantamweight division. I can't remember his name right now. It escapes me. But where he definitely lost, and he jumps on top of the cage like, yeah, I won. I won. I totally won. I won that decision. And in our head, we're going, shut the fuck up. You did not win that fight. You lost that fight. It's pretty clear you lost that fight. I'm pissed the opposite way, where Fakhretdinov won this fight, and he's just like, oh, I'm smiling. I'm laughing. I'm just so glad a way to get with the draw because the last round inconvenienced me. No, you lost the last round, but you won this fight. And they need to stop. Someone needs to tell these guys to fix that up. Let's go to the scorecards. All right. We go to the judges' scorecards. Saul D'Amato. He gives the first 2 rounds to Fakhretdinov, gives the last round a 10-8 to Dos Santos. Honorable mention. It's just, we just talked about it. Terrible scorecard. Halison Pontes. Another terrible scorecard. He scores it the exact same way Saul D'Amato had it. Terrible scorecard. And then Fabio Alves. Guys, when I say if you find the entire fight night scorecard, there is some really bad. This whole night is marred by really questionable, very, very, very questionable scorecards. We'll get to some other fights, but very, very, very questionable scorecards. And I'm just so sad to see it. Very questionable scorecards. Then Fabio Alves gives the first round to Fakhretdinov, gives the second round to Dos Santos. Are you hearing this correctly? Gives the second round to Dos Santos. Dos Santos was outstruck well. I mean, it's not even close. It's not even close. Third round gives him a 10-9. Are you fucking kidding me? So let me get this straight. Second round is like the dude you scored it for gets outstruck pretty well. You give him the round. And then his meter, it makes no sense, actually. His meter makes no sense. Because if his meter was correct, it would be a 10-8 for Dos Santos in this third round. But it's wrong. Both of those scorecards, both of those two second round and third round scorecards are wrong. He then gives a 10-9 to Dos Santos in the third round, making it a 29-28. So he was going to give the fight to the wrong person, let alone fuck a draw. He was going to give the wrong fight to the wrong person. Honorable mention all 3 judges. It's nonsense. It's absolutely fucking nonsense. We go to the next honorable mention. Okay, Fernandes versus Diakiese. Routine Diakiese fight where Diakiese just basically wrestles because his striking isn't as good as the other opponent. This turned into a split decision. It really shouldn't have been. This should have been not a split decision. Again, questionable home cooking like judging that just came out of nowhere. Fernandes versus Diakiese. I had the first round and the third round for Diakiese. The third round I put a close marker on. You can argue it either way, but I gave that second round to Fernandes, so I had it 29-28 for Diakiese. You can argue a 30-27 for Diakiese, but that's how I had it. In the first round, Fernandes barely outstruck Diakiese on the feet. Both of them had a takedown, but Diakiese had a reversal and a little bit of ground and pound. It's his round. You go to the second round, Fernandes outstruck Diakiese on the feet. Diakiese had a takedown with very little ground and pound. I mean, he had him on the ground and he kind of just laid and prayed on him. Very little pot shots here and there, but nothing super significant. And Fernandes was slightly active on the bottom. This round almost always is scored for Fernandes. surprising. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was. I'll check the scorecards. And that's the second round. And then the third round, it's close on the feet. They're kind of trading shots on the feet. And then Diakiese had a takedown with some ground and pound for about 2+ minutes of control time. Fernandes was active on the bottom, but it wasn't enough. He wasn't crazy active enough to take this round or anything. This round belongs to Diakiese. That's where you get the 29-28. You go to the scorecards. Okay, Fabio Alves gives the first round to Fernandes. Insane. Just off the bat. Just stupid. Actually, it's wrong, but it's not ridiculously wrong. So I'll hold my fire there. Gives the last 2 rounds to Diakiese. Okay. Halson Pontes, 30-27 to Diakiese. Honorable mention there. I think the second round goes to. I'm all over the place now. I'm all over the place with my mire. He has a fine scorecard, and then you have Dave Torelli, who gives it the wrong way. There we go. Okay, let me fix up my mire. Fabio Alves, cool. I still disagree on the first round scorecard. Halson Pontes, scorecard's fine. Dave Torelli gives the first 2 rounds to Fernandes. First round, no. Second round, okay. Third round gives to Diakiese. Honorable mention to Dave Torelli. Definite wrong scorecard. All right, we go to the next honorable mention, and it's Moura versus Ruiz or Conejo. They put Ruiz, but Conejo. Moura versus Conejo. First round, this fight ended in a TKO for Moura. I gave it 10-8 to Moura in the first round. Okay, in that first round, Moura had 2 takedowns with ground and pound with 3+ minutes. I put a possible 10-8. It was a 10-8 in my book. It was just constant. It was just over and over and over. She didn't stop with the ground and pound. She just kept going. Just kept going. I mean, constant ground and pound. Clear 10-8 in my eyes. You go to the judges' scorecards. Saul D'Amato, Alessandro Vieira, and Halson Pontes. D'Amato and Vieira had a 10-8, and then Halson Pontes had a 10-9 for Moura. So there's that. You go to the next honorable mention. It's Hill versus Gomes, or Gomes. I had this 29-28 for Gomes. This fight is close, so I can't really whine. But I'll explain. 29-28 for Gomes. First 2 rounds I gave to Gomes. Second round is close. So you can argue a 29-28 for Hill, but I had a 29-28 for Gomes. You go to that first round. Both had a takedown, but it's clear that Gomes outstruck her and had more ground and pound. So both of them had a takedown. Hill did nothing with her takedown. Gomes had a takedown. She had a lot of ground and pound. Hill had a reversal as well, but Gomes had a lot of ground and pound, and she outstruck her on the feet. It's pretty clear. You go to the second round, where it becomes a slight clinch battle. So Gomes outstrikes Hill on the feet. And I believe in the clinch as well. But it's close. I can't definitely put my hand in that because it's close. They're both active in the clinch. Hill is the one pushing her against the cage. So maybe that's the reasoning for the judges' scorecards. I personally don't find that to be an important factor. I just think the strikes are an important factor in that scenario. But there's that. In that second round, I believe Gomes barely outstruck her. But again, the cage control comes into factors and the clinch strikes. But both of them were pretty close in their clinch strikes. You go to the third round. Hill basically took over. Hill had 3 takedowns with ground and pound and outstruck Gomes on the feet. And that's where you get the fight. You go to the scorecards. Saul D'Amato had it 30-27. Automatic honorable mention. Shit scorecard. First round belongs to Gomes. I don't know how you give this round to Hill. It makes no fucking sense. Rewatch it 7 billion times. She outstruck her clear. Ground and pound clear. Forget whether Hill got the takedown or the reversal. She did nothing with those. Honorable mention, just craziness. And then gives the last 2 rounds to Angela Hill. That's fine. Dave Torelli, his scorecard gives the first round to Gomes, second round to Hill. That's fine, and then the last round to Hill. That's also fine. 29-28. Alessandro Vieira, his scorecard reflects Dave Torelli as well. So there's that. We move on to the next honorable mention. A quick sidebar honorable mention: Brener versus Kruschewsky, I think. Brener wins by KO. He threw, I believe, like I think it was a left hand. He threw a left hand, and it hit the side. It's a weird KO. It was the weirdest KO. It hit the side of, I'm going to say Kruschewsky. He hit the side of Kruschewsky's head. But it was glancing. It was a glancing strike, and Kruschewsky fell as though he was hit with the strike that Petrino threw. It was insane. I was just even when I saw it in the first time it happened, I was like, "What the fuck? What just hit him?" That's what I said. I was like, "What just hit him?" Then I saw the replays, and I'm like, is that enough to... But then I realized there's a bunch of wonky KOs, right? But it just looked very divish. I'm not saying it is divey. I'm not saying he did dive, but it looked very divish. But the way he fell, I'm like, there's no way he dived, obviously. I just wanted to point that out. Next honorable mention is Borralho versus Magomedov. Borralho, another fighter who I disdain, who I find, whose ground and pound in those early UFC fights that he had were really, really, really shitty. Really shitty, just allergic to ground and pound. There's a new stint of Brazilian fighters that are allergic to ground and pound. There's a stint of fighters also in the U.S. too that are allergic to ground and pound. It's permeating the MMA scene. 29-28 for Borralho against Magomedov. First round Magomedov. Last 2 rounds to Borralho. I can't complain about this. Obviously, I can complain about this because I'm the one scoring this, but I can't complain too much about it. First round, Magomedov barely outstrikes Borralho. I think he should have won this round. I'll see the scorecards, obviously. He outstruck him by about 2 to 3 strikes, so there's that. Give that what you... Take that how you will. He outstruck Borralho by about 2 to 3 strikes. You go to the second round, Borralho outstruck Magomedov by 4 to 5 strikes. And then in the third round, Borralho drops and outstrikes Magomedov, and he has some ground and pound. And then he also lays on top of him for a significant portion. I mean, the ground and pound was whatever, but it wasn't even a lot of ground and pound. It's another critique of... He drops Magomedov and then proceeds to just not administer any bit of ground and pound. When I say that Borralho is allergic to ground and pound, it's evident here. Sean Strickland finished him with, I can't remember this one, but I'm assuming ground and pound. I'm assuming, I can't remember, but Borralho just decides, let me just lay on him and talk to him, because no one has talked to me in the past week, so let me just talk to him while I could have finished this fight earlier. Cool. We go to the judges' scorecards. If I can find them. Yeah, and I did find them. Saul D'Amato, he had it 29-28 for Borralho. He gives the last 2 rounds to Borralho. Dave Torelli, his scorecard reflects mine as well. And then Fabio Alves has a 30-27. He gives all 3 rounds to Borralho. Honorable mention. No, thank you. Not feeling that. Next honorable mention, it's Nascimento versus Mayes. 29-28 for Nascimento. The first 2 rounds I gave to Nascimento. Last round you give to Hayes. In the first round, Nascimento outstruck Mayes. Pretty clear. Second round, he did the same. Third round, close on strikes with the edge to Mayes. But pretty much Mayes was outstriking him for much of that round. But it eventually simmered down to a close amount of strikes. But Mayes still outstruck him. You go to the judges' scorecards. Halison Pontes, fuck it. Here's a 30-27 for no reason. Gives the last round to Nascimento as well. Honorable mention. It's absolutely stupid. Fabio Alves, his scorecard reflects mine, and Dave Torelli, his scorecard reflects mine as well. So there's that. Just weird judging all around here. Bonfim versus Dalby is the next honorable mention. Amazing comeback. Awesome comeback for Dalby. He wins by TKO in the second round via cardio. That's my favorite kind of TKO. Just the other person gets tired. It's so awesome to watch just somebody get tired. It's cool. It's great. But I had a 10-9 for Bonfim in the first round. And in that very first round, if I can find it, in that very first round, Bonfim outstruck and had a takedown with ground and pound against Dalby. There were pockets in that first round too where you could see Bonfim was actually getting tired, but he had enough energy to finish that round. You go to the judges' scorecards, and we have goofery. So Dave Torelli gives a 10-9 to Bonfim. So does Alessandro Vieira. And then Halison Pontes can't score. So he gives a 10-8 to Bonfim. There's a lot of home cooking. Going on. A 10-8 to Gabriel Bonfim. Just absolutely ridiculous. I'm stunned. And that pretty much concludes this episode. Just a weird night. A weird night of just weird judging, and Jailton Almeida. And Jailton Almeida being so... I'm telling you, if this fight was in Madison Square Garden, this crowd is booing. Can I just point out that during Nascimento versus Hayes, there were flashlights out to signify that this fight's fucking boring? There was more action in that fight than Jailton Almeida's entire career. And they were throwing up fucking flashlights for this fight. It's fucking boring. Yet they sat through a snoozer in Jailton Almeida humping Derek Lewis. That's all I have. Thank you all for listening, and God bless.